I was standing in my own living room when my son looked right through me and said, "She won't even notice when we transferred the deed." He wasn't whispering. He wasn't trying to hide it. He was standing at my kitchen table with stacks of papers spread out like he owned the play switch. Apparently, he thought he already did. My daughter-in-law, Rebecca, laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A confident one. She turned to him and said, "Babe, she doesn't understand half of what we're saying anyway." I stayed quiet. I always stayed quiet lately. That's what they expected from me. The confused old woman who shuffled around her own house like a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. But here's the thing. I understood every single word. My son, Michael, tapped a pen against a manila folder and glanced at me with that look. You know the one? The look that says, "Mom's getting old. We need to handle things now before it's too late." Except I wasn't the one who needed handling. "We went to the bank branch yesterday," Rebecca said, adjusting her oversized sunglasses even though we were indoors. "They said everything's almost ready. Just need her signature on a few more things." A few more things. I looked down at the papers on my table. Some were stapled. Some had sticky notes with arrows pointing to lines that said, "Sign here." I saw the word notarized stamped in blue ink across the top of one page. I didn't recognize the date. I didn't recognize the signature next to mine. But I didn't say that. Not yet. Michael leaned back in the chair, my chair, the one my late husband used to sit in every Sunday morning with his coffee, and sighed like this whole thing exhausted him. "It's for your own good, Mom. You know that, right?" I nodded. I smiled. I played the part. Rebecca's phone buzzed on the table. She swiped it open without looking at me and muttered something under her breath about the attorney's office and confirming the appointment for Tuesday. Tuesday. That was 3 days away. I reached for my water glass, my hand steady, and took a slow sip. My son thought I was too old to notice. My daughter-in-law thought I was too slow to understand. But while they were busy planning how to take my house, my money, and my name off everything I'd built, I was noticing something else entirely. There was an envelope on the corner of the table. It had been opened and carelessly left there, just a few inches from my elbow. Inside, I could see the edge of a receipt. It was from a title company. The kind of receipt you get when you're preparing to transfer a property. I didn't pick it up. I didn't ask about it. I just memorized the name printed at the top. Rebecca stood and stretched, her designer bag swinging from her shoulder. "We should get going. I have that thing at the country club." Michael stood too, gathering the papers but leaving a few behind, like I wouldn't notice, like I wouldn't care. "Mom, we'll be back tomorrow to go over everything. Just don't worry about any of this, okay? We're taking care of it. Taking care of it." I watched them walk out of my house. I heard Rebecca's heels click across the hardwood floor I'd chosen 30 years ago. I heard the front door close behind them, my front door, with the wreath I'd hung last Christmas still fading in the sun. And then I heard something else. The faint chime from my phone. A notification. I picked it up slowly, my hands not shaking the way they pretended they did. It was from my Ring camera. Motion detected. Office. 11:47 p.m. I opened the app. The video was grainy, but clear enough. Rebecca, alone, in my office. Going through my filing cabinet. Pulling out folders. Taking pictures with her phone. I set my phone down on the table, right next to the envelope they'd left behind. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there in the silence of my own home and realized something I should have known months ago. This wasn't about helping me. This was about erasing me. And the worst part? They thought I'd already let them. The next morning, Michael showed up with coffee and pastries from that expensive bakery Rebecca loved. He set the bag on the counter like it was some kind of peace offering, then turned to me with that smile. The one that used to comfort me when he was young and scared of thunderstorms. Now it just made my stomach turn. "Morning, Mom. How'd you sleep?" "Fine," I said, pouring myself tea from the kettle I'd been using since before he was born. He watched me like I might forget how to pour water. I wanted to talk to you about something important. Do you remember where you keep your personal documents? Birth certificate? Social security card? That kind of thing? I looked at him over the rim of my cup. Why? Just for safekeeping. He opened the pastry bag and pulled out a croissant, breaking it in half. Things have been a little disorganized lately, and Rebecca and I thought it might be good to put everything in one place. Somewhere secure? Somewhere I couldn't access, he meant. They're where they've always been, I said. Right, but where's that exactly? He was using that voice. The slow, careful one people use with children and the elderly. Each word stretched out like I might not catch it otherwise. I didn't answer. I just sipped my tea and watched him get frustrated. Mom, I'm trying to help you here. What if something happens and we can't find your important papers? What if there's an emergency? Then I'll handle it. His jaw tightened. Just barely. But I saw it. You're not making this easy, he said, forcing a laugh. We're just trying to make sure you're protected. That's what families do. Families. The word sat heavy in the room between us. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another ring notification. I didn't need to look at it to know what it was. Motion detected. Office. 6:23 a.m. They'd been in there again, while I was still asleep. Michael finished his coffee and stood, brushing crumbs off his expensive polo shirt. I'm going to check the mail for you. Sometimes bills pile up and you might miss something. He walked toward the hallway before I could respond. I heard him opening drawers in my office. Not even pretending anymore. When he came back, he had a folder in his hand. One I didn't give him permission to take. Found it, he said, holding it up like a trophy. See? This is exactly what I was talking about. You had this just sitting in an unlocked drawer. I stared at him. That's mine. I know it's yours, Mom. That's why we're keeping it safe. He tucked it under his arm. Rebecca's going to make copies of everything and put the originals in our safe deposit box. Just in case. Just in case I tried to stop them. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip that folder out of his hands and tell him to get out of my house. But I didn't. Because the moment I did that, I'd confirm everything they were already whispering about me. She's losing it. She's paranoid. She can't manage on her own anymore. So instead, I smiled. That's very thoughtful of you, sweetheart. He looked relieved. Almost guilty. I know this feels like a lot, but it's really for the best. You'll see. After he left, I sat in my kitchen for a long time. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when you realize you're completely alone, even when people claim to love you. I pulled out my phone and scrolled back through the ring notifications from the past week. 17 alerts. All from my office. All between midnight and 6 a.m. Rebecca's voice echoed in one of the saved clips. I turned up the volume and listened. She doesn't even check her emails anymore. She has no idea what we're doing. A man's voice responded. Not Michael's. Someone I didn't recognize. And the attorney confirmed she won't need to be present for the initial filing? Right? They said as long as we have medical documentation showing cognitive decline, it's just a formality. Medical documentation? Cognitive decline? I replayed it 3 times, my hand gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Then I opened my notes app and typed the date, the time, and every word I'd just heard. This wasn't just disrespect anymore. This wasn't just a son who'd gotten greedy and a daughter-in-law who saw me as an obstacle. This was a plan. A calculated, deliberate plan to declare me incompetent. And I was the only one who knew it was happening. 3 days later, Michael walked into my kitchen holding a business card like it was a lottery ticket. Mom, I've got great news. I found an attorney who specializes in helping seniors with estate planning. He's one of the best in the state. I was folding dish towels. The same dish towels I'd been folding in this kitchen for 30 years. I didn't ask for an attorney. I know, but it's something we should have done a long time ago. He set the card on the counter in front of me. Gerald Finch, Esquire, Elder Law and Estate Planning. I already made an appointment for Thursday, 2 o'clock. I'll need to check my calendar. He laughed. Actually laughed. Mom, you don't have anything on your calendar? And besides, you don't even need to come. These meetings are really technical. Lots of legal jargon. I don't want you sitting there confused and exhausted for 2 hours. There it was again. Confused, exhausted, incompetent. If it's about my estate, I should be there, I said quietly. Of course you should. Eventually. But the first meeting is just paperwork. Trust me, you'd be bored out of your mind. He was already texting someone, his thumbs flying across the screen. Rebecca and I will handle the initial consultation, and then once everything's simplified, we'll walk you through it. Easy? Easy for who? I picked up the business card. The office address was downtown, near the courthouse. Convenient. What kind of estate planning? I asked. Just standard stuff. Power of attorney, healthcare directives, maybe setting up a trust so everything's protected if he stopped himself. You know, just in case. Just in case I became too inconvenient to deal with. He kissed the top of my head like I was a child and headed for the door. Don't worry about a thing, okay? We've got this under control. After he left, I stood in my kitchen holding that business card for a long time. Then I called the number. A receptionist answered. Pleasant voice? Professional. Hi, I'm calling about an appointment scheduled for Thursday at 2. Under the name, oh yes, Mrs. Patterson. Your son already confirmed everything. We have all the preliminary documents ready for signature. My stomach dropped. What documents? There was a pause. The ones your son submitted last week? The petition for temporary guardianship and the financial power of attorney? Is there something you need to update? Temporary guardianship. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. I just stood there with the phone pressed against my ear, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my own heartbeat. Mrs. Patterson, are you still there? I hung up. My hands were shaking now. Not pretend shaking. Real shaking. I walked to my office and opened the filing cabinet. Half of my folders were gone. The ones Michael had taken. The ones he said he was keeping safe. But there was something else. Something new. A stack of papers shoved in the back, folded and creased like someone had tried to hide them quickly. I pulled them out and smoothed them flat on my desk. It was a draft. A legal petition. My name was at the top, misspelled. Catherine Patterson, Dobb incorrect by 2 years. Petitioner, Michael James Patterson. Grounds for guardianship, memory loss, confusion, inability to manage financial affairs, risk of self-neglect. Every single word was a lie. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the date at the bottom. It had been notarized 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. While I was still cooking dinner for them. While I was still asking Michael about his work. While I was still pretending everything was fine. I sat down in my chair and read every line. Every fabricated symptom. Every exaggerated incident. Every carefully worded sentence designed to paint me as a woman who could no longer be trusted with her own life. Then I heard it. A voicemail notification on my phone. I must have missed the call while I was talking to the attorney's office. I played it. Rebecca's voice. Bright and confident. Hi, this is Rebecca Patterson confirming the appointment for Thursday at 2. We'll have the signed medical evaluations with us. Dr. Chun said the cognitive assessment results should be enough for the judge. Thanks. Dr. Chun, my primary care physician. The one I'd been seeing for 12 years. I'd never taken a cognitive assessment. I stared at the petition in my hands, at the lies typed neatly in black ink, and realized something that made my blood run cold. This wasn't just about taking my house. This was about taking me. And they were 3 days away from succeeding. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with every piece of paper I could find spread out in front of me. Bank statements, bills, the petition, the business card. By morning, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I got dressed carefully. Not too nice, not too casual. The kind of outfit that said I was still taking care of myself, still present, still here. Then I drove to the bank. The same branch where Michael claimed they'd recommended someone younger handle my accounts. The same branch where Rebecca had been so confident I wouldn't notice anything wrong. I walked up to the counter and asked for Mrs. Vanessa Torres. She was the branch manager. I'd known her for 6 years, ever since she'd helped me refinance after my husband died. Mrs. Patterson. She smiled, but something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or concern. What can I do for you today? I need to review my account activity, I said. All of it? Going back 3 months? She hesitated. Just for a second. Of course. Let me pull that up for you. Would you like to step into my office? We sat down, and she turned her computer screen toward me. I watched her fingers move across the keyboard, her face carefully neutral. Here we are, she said. Is there something specific you're looking for? I leaned forward and pointed at a transfer from 2 weeks ago. That one? I didn't authorize that. It was processed through your online banking portal, she said carefully. I don't use online banking. Another pause. Longer this time. Mrs. Patterson, according to our records, your son was added as a joint account holder last month. He has full access to. I didn't add him. She stopped. Really stopped. Her hands went still on the keyboard, and she looked at me. Not the way Michael looked at me. Not the way Rebecca looked at me. She looked at me like I was a person saying something that mattered. Can you print everything? I asked. Every transaction. Every change to the account. Every authorization. All of it. She nodded slowly. Yes, but Mrs. Patterson, if there's been unauthorized access, we need to file a formal dispute. This could be. I know what it could be, I said. That's why I need the records. She printed 47 pages. Every transaction highlighted. Every digital signature logged. Every IP address tracked. I recognized my home address on some of them, but there were others. Transfers made from locations I'd never been. Authorizations signed with my name and a handwriting that wasn't quite right. Close, but not right. Vanessa handed me the stack, and then she did something I didn't expect. She pulled out one more page, a separate one, and she slid it across the desk, face down. This came through our fraud detection system 2 days ago, she said quietly. It was flagged but not blocked, because the account is joint. I wasn't supposed to mention it. But I think you should know. I turned it over. It was a request to add Rebecca Patterson as a secondary account holder, pending approval, scheduled to process automatically on Friday, the day after the attorney meeting. Thank you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Vanessa leaned forward. Mrs. Patterson, I've worked in banking for 20 years. I've seen this before. If you need help, if you need me to testify to anything, you call me. Do you understand? I nodded. I folded the papers carefully and put them in my purse. When I got home, Michael's car was in the driveway. He was in my living room, sitting on my couch, eating my food, scrolling through his phone like he lived there, like it was already his. Hey, Mom, where were you? The bank. His face changed. Just slightly. Oh, yeah? Everything okay? Fine, I said. Just checking on something. He stood up, and I could see him trying to read me, trying to figure out if I knew. What did you need to check on? Nothing important. He didn't believe me. I could see it in the way his shoulders tensed, in the way he glanced toward the door like he was calculating whether to leave or stay. Mom, if something's bothering you, you can talk to me. You know that, right? I looked at him, my son. The boy I raised. The man who was trying to erase me. I know, I said. And I smiled. The same smile I'd been giving him for months. The one that said I didn't understand. The one that said I didn't notice. But this time, I was holding 47 pages of proof in my purse. And he had no idea. 2 days before the attorney meeting, Michael insisted on driving me to my doctor's appointment. It's just a routine checkup, I said, reaching for my car keys. He took them off the hook before I could. I know, but I'm heading that direction anyway. Plus, you know how confusing that new Medicare system can be. I'll help you with the paperwork. I wasn't confused about Medicare. I'd been navigating it just fine for 3 years. But I didn't argue. I was learning that silence gave me more information than questions ever could. Rebecca was already in the car when we got outside. She smiled at me from the passenger seat, her sunglasses pushed up on her head like a headband. Hope you don't mind, she said. I had some errands nearby. Thought I'd tag along? I minded. But I got in the back seat anyway. The drive was 20 minutes. Rebecca spent most of it on her phone, texting someone and laughing under her breath. Michael kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror like he was checking to make sure I was still there. When we pulled into the Medical Plaza parking lot, Rebecca suddenly straightened up. Oh, babe, I should come in with you guys. You know, in case Mom needs help with anything. I don't need help, I said. She turned around and gave me that look. The patient one. The condescending one. I know, sweetie, but sometimes the questions they ask can be tricky. You don't want to get confused and give them the wrong information. There was that word again. Confused. We walked into Dr. Chun's office together. Michael signed me in while I sat in the waiting room. Rebecca sat next to me, scrolling through her phone, occasionally sighing like this was the biggest inconvenience of her day. When the nurse called my name, Rebecca stood up with me. I'll come back with you, she said brightly. That's not necessary, I started to say. But she was already walking ahead, her heels clicking on the tile floor. The nurse looked between us, unsure. I nodded, and we all went back together. Dr. Chun came in a few minutes later. He was kind, professional, the same as he'd always been. He asked me the standard questions. How was I feeling? Any new symptoms? Any concerns? Before I could answer, Rebecca leaned forward. Actually, doctor, we've been a little worried. She's been forgetting things lately. Appointments, names, where she puts her keys. Little things, but they're adding up. Dr. Chun looked at me. Is that true, Catherine? No, I said. Rebecca laughed. Nervous and light. See? That's part of it. She doesn't always realize when she's confused. We've been keeping track, and it's happening more often. I stared at her. She wasn't even looking at me. She was looking at Dr. Chun like I wasn't in the room. Mrs. Patterson, Dr. Chun said gently, have you noticed any memory issues yourself? No. She wouldn't, Rebecca interrupted. That's what we're concerned about. She seems fine on the surface, but then she'll forget entire conversations. Last week she couldn't remember if she'd taken her medication. That was a lie. I took my medication every morning with breakfast. Same time, same routine. For 3 years. Dr. Chun made a note. I watched his pen move across the paper, each word a small betrayal. I'd like to run some cognitive tests, he said, just to establish a baseline. It's very standard for patients your age. I don't need cognitive tests, I said. Rebecca touched my arm. Mom, it's just to make sure everything's okay. There's nothing to be afraid of. I wasn't afraid. I was angry. But I couldn't show that. Because if I got angry, if I raised my voice or pushed back too hard, it would only prove what they were already trying to say. That I was unstable. That I couldn't manage myself. That I needed someone else to take control. So I stayed quiet. After the appointment, we walked back to the car. Rebecca was texting again, her fingers flying across the screen. Michael opened the door for me like I was fragile. As I slid into the back seat, I heard Rebecca's voice. Low, but not low enough. She was on the phone. Yeah, the doctor's ordering the evaluation. Should have results by Friday, ... No, she didn't push back. She doesn't even realize what's happening. ... I know, right? The lawyer said as long as we have medical documentation, the judge won't even question it. My heart stopped. She kept talking, her voice fading as she walked around to the passenger side. We just need to get through Thursday's meeting, and then it's done. House, accounts, everything. She won't even know until it's too late. Michael started the car. Rebecca ended her call and turned around to smile at me. You did great in there, Mum. See? That wasn't so bad. I smiled back, weak and grateful, just like she expected. But in my purse, my phone was recording every word. I couldn't stop shaking when I got home. Not because I was scared, because I finally understood the full scope of what they were doing. This wasn't just paperwork. This wasn't just greed. They were building a case. A medical case. A legal case? A case that would declare me incompetent in front of a judge who would never hear my side of the story. I sat on my bed and played the recording back 3 times. Rebecca's voice. Clear as day. She won't even know until it's too late. I saved it. Backed it up. Sent it to my email. Then I lay down and stared at the ceiling until the sun went down. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I drove back to the medical plaza. Not to Dr. Chun's office. To the records department on the 2nd floor. The woman behind the desk had tired eyes and a name tag that said, Linda. She looked up when I approached. I need copies of my medical records, I said. Sure. We'll need you to fill out a request form. Usually takes 3 to 5 business days. I don't have 5 days. She looked at me more carefully. Is there an emergency? Yes. Something in my voice must have registered, because she handed me a clipboard immediately. Fill this out. I'll see what I can do. I sat in the waiting area and filled out every line. Name, date of birth, records requested. All of them. Everything. When I handed it back, Linda scanned it and frowned. Mrs. Patterson, it looks like there's already an active request for your records. From who? She clicked through her computer. Your son? Michael Patterson. He requested copies 2 weeks ago. They were released to his address. My stomach turned. What about cognitive evaluations? Did he request those too? She hesitated. I can't disclose specific document types without they're my records, I said. My voice was steady, but my hands weren't. I'm asking about my own medical information. Linda looked at me for a long moment. Then she turned her screen slightly so I could see it. There was a request. Pending? For a cognitive assessment report dated last week? I never took a cognitive assessment last week, I said. Linda's face changed. Are you sure? I'm sure. She clicked something else. Pulled up another screen. Mrs. Patterson, according to this, Dr. Chun submitted a preliminary cognitive screening report 3 days ago. It's marked as completed during your routine appointment. He asked me a few questions. That's all. This document says you were administered a mini mental state examination and scored. She stopped. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be reading this out loud. What did I score? She looked at me like she was making a decision that could cost her job. Then she turned the screen toward me completely. I read the number. 21 out of 30. Classified as mild cognitive impairment. I had never taken that test. Can I get a copy? I asked. Of everything. Right now. Linda printed it. All of it. The request from Michael? The assessment I never took. The doctor's notes that said I appeared disoriented and confused about recent events? None of it was true. She handed me the stack and leaned forward. Mrs. Patterson, if something's wrong here, you need to report it. This is your protected health information. If someone's falsifying records, I know, I said. Thank you. I walked out of that office with a folder full of lies that had my doctor's signature on them. Lies that would be presented to a judge in 2 days. Lies that would take everything I had left. When I got to my car, I sat behind the wheel and let myself cry. Just for a minute. Just long enough to feel the weight of what I was up against. Then I dried my eyes, pulled out my phone, and searched for attorneys near me. Not estate planning attorneys. Not elder law attorneys. Civil rights attorneys. Fraud attorneys. Someone who fought back. I found one. A woman named Margaret Hall. Her website said she specialized in financial abuse and guardianship disputes. There was a quote on her homepage. Every voice deserves to be heard. I called the number. A receptionist answered. I need to see Miss Hall, I said. Today? It's urgent. She's fully booked today, but I can schedule you for, tell her someone is trying to declare me incompetent using forged medical records. Tell her the hearing is in 2 days. Tell her I have proof. There was a pause. Hold, please. 30 seconds later, a different voice came on the line. Strong. Direct. This is Margaret Hall. Can you be here in an hour? Yes. Bring everything you have. Every document. Every recording. Every piece of evidence. And Mrs. Patterson? Yes. Don't tell anyone you're coming. Margaret Hall's office was nothing like Gerald Finch's. No fancy leather chairs. No view of the courthouse. Just a small suite in a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a tax preparation service. But when she shook my hand, I knew I was in the right place. Sit, she said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told her about Michael's comments. About Rebecca going through my office. About the bank statements and the forged signatures. About the doctor's appointment and the assessment I never took. About the recording from the car. She listened without interrupting. She took notes in careful, precise handwriting. And when I finished, she looked up at me with eyes that were sharp and kind at the same time. How much time do we have? The meeting with their attorney is tomorrow at 2. She checked her watch. 26 hours. That's tight, but we can work with it. She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. First thing, we need to file a motion to block any temporary guardianship petition before it reaches a judge. Second, we need an independent medical evaluation. I know a geriatric psychiatrist who can see you today. Today. Right now. I'm calling her as soon as we're done here. Margaret flipped through the pages I'd brought. The bank statements, the forged petition, the medical records. This is good. This is very good. Your son made a critical mistake. What mistake? She pulled out one of the notarized documents and pointed to the time stamp. He signed as a witness here at 10:43 a.m. on October 9th. But look at this. She laid another paper next to it. This is a credit card receipt from the same day. He was at a restaurant 30 miles away at 10:30 a.m. There's no way he was in that attorney's office when this was notarized. I stared at the papers. I hadn't caught that. That's fraud, Margaret said simply. Notary fraud. And if he lied about that, a judge is going to question everything else. She picked up her phone. I'm calling Dr. Sandra Okafor now. She's going to evaluate you, and she's going to document that you are cognitively intact. Then we're going to submit her report along with a formal complaint about Dr. Chun's records. Will that be enough? Margaret looked at me. Mrs. Patterson, you walked in here with recordings, bank statements, time stamps, and a paper trail that shows deliberate, systematic fraud. Most people in your situation don't have half of this. You stayed quiet. You documented everything. You didn't confront them. She smiled. You built a case without even realizing it. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. Dr. Okafor saw me at 4 o'clock. She was younger than I expected, maybe in her 40s, with kind eyes and a calm voice. She spent 2 hours with me. She asked me questions about my life, my routine, my memories. She had me solve puzzles, recall lists, draw shapes, answer questions about current events. When we finished, she closed her notebook and looked at me. "Mrs. Patterson, you are sharper than most people half your age. There is no cognitive impairment. None. Whoever wrote that report either didn't evaluate you properly, or they wrote what someone paid them to write." I felt my throat tighten. "Can you put that in writing?" "I already am." She turned to her computer and started typing. "I'm submitting my evaluation tonight, and I'm copying the state medical board on my concerns about Dr. Chun's assessment." That evening, I sat in Margaret's office while she drafted the motion. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, and I watched words appear on the screen. Words like fraud, coercion, exploitation, falsification. Words that finally told the truth. "We're filing this first thing tomorrow morning," Margaret said. "Which means when your son and his wife show up at Gerald Finch's office, they're going to walk into a very different situation than they're expecting." "What do you mean?" She smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who'd fought battles like this before and won. "I mean, they think they're going to a meeting to finalize taking control of your life. But what they're actually walking into is a fraud investigation. And Mrs. Patterson?" She looked up at me. "You don't have to be there if you don't want to. I can handle it." I thought about that. About staying home. About letting someone else fight for me. Then I thought about Rebecca's voice in the car. "She won't even know until it's too late." "No," I said. "I want to be there." Margaret nodded. "Then we'll be there together." I drove home that night with a folder full of documents that told my side of the story. A side that had been silent for too long. Michael's car was in my driveway when I pulled up. He was sitting on my porch, waiting. "Mom, where have you been?" "I've been calling you all day." "I had some errands," I said, walking past him to unlock my door. "What kind of errands?" I turned and looked at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time in months, I didn't smile. I didn't play along. "The kind that needed taking care of," I said, and I closed the door. Thursday morning arrived cold and gray. I dressed carefully. A navy blazer, simple jewelry, the same outfit I'd worn to my husband's funeral. The outfit that said I was serious, that I was present, that I was not going anywhere. Margaret picked me up at noon. She had a leather briefcase with her, the kind that looked like it had seen 100 courtrooms. "How are you feeling?" she asked as I got into her car. "Nervous." "Good. That means you understand what's at stake." She glanced at me. "But remember, you're not defending yourself today. You're exposing them. There's a difference." We arrived at Gerald Finch's office at 1:50, 10 minutes early. The building was sleek and modern, all glass and chrome. The kind of place that charged by the quarter hour. The receptionist looked up when we walked in. "Can I help you?" "Margaret Hall, attorney at law. I'm here for the 2 o'clock regarding Catherine Patterson." The receptionist's smile faltered. "I don't have you listed." "That's because your client didn't know I'd be attending." "But Mrs. Patterson is the subject of this meeting, and she has every right to be here with representation." The receptionist picked up the phone, whispered something, hung up. "Mr. Finch will be with you shortly. You can wait over there." We sat in the lobby. Expensive leather chairs, magazines about wealth management and estate planning fanned out on the glass table. At exactly 2 o'clock, the door opened. Michael walked in first. He stopped when he saw me. His face went pale. Rebecca was right behind him. She froze mid-step, her designer purse slipping off her shoulder. "Mom?" Michael's voice cracked. "What are you doing here?" "I was invited," I said calmly. He looked at Margaret. "Who are you?" "Margaret Hall. I'm Mrs. Patterson's attorney." She stood and extended her hand. Michael didn't take it. "I believe we're all here for the same meeting." A tall man in an expensive suit appeared in the doorway. Gerald Finch. He looked confused. There seems to be some misunderstanding. This is a private consultation with my clients regarding a petition for guardianship over Catherine Patterson. Margaret interrupted. Who is standing right here, fully competent, fully represented, and fully aware of what you are planning to do without her knowledge? Finch's face changed. He looked at Michael. I was under the impression that Mrs. Patterson was unable to attend due to medical concerns. She's fine, Margaret said. As you can see. I think we should speak privately, Michael said quickly. Mom, why don't you wait out here while we know? My voice was steady, stronger than I expected. If you're discussing my life, my home, and my mental capacity, I'm going to be in the room. Rebecca grabbed Michael's arm. We should reschedule. This is happening now, Margaret said. Unless you'd prefer to have this conversation in front of a judge, which, given the evidence we've compiled, might not go the way you hoped. Finch cleared his throat. Perhaps we should all sit down and discuss this like adults. We followed him into a conference room. Long table, leather chairs, a window overlooking the city. Michael and Rebecca sat on one side. Margaret and I sat on the other. Finch sat at the head, looking like he wished he were anywhere else. Mr. Finch, Margaret began. Are you aware that the medical documentation your clients provided was obtained without Mrs. Patterson's informed consent? I was provided with records from her physician indicating a cognitive assessment that was never properly administered. A sworn affidavit from Dr. Sandra Okafor, a board-certified geriatric psychiatrist who evaluated Mrs. Patterson yesterday. Would you like to see it? She slid a document across the table. Finch picked it up. Read it. His jaw tightened. Furthermore, Margaret continued, we have evidence that the notarized petition you were planning to file contains falsified witness signatures. Michael Patterson could not have been present at the time and location indicated. We have receipts, timestamps, and GPS data to prove it. Michael stood up. This is ridiculous. Mom, you're confused. You don't understand what's happening here. Sit down, Margaret said sharply. Your mother understands perfectly. She's understood everything from the beginning. She just let you think she didn't. Rebecca's face had gone white. She was staring at her phone like she wanted to disappear into it. We also have recordings, Margaret said, pulling out her laptop. Would you like to hear them, Mr. Finch? Or should I save them for the state bar complaint? Recordings? Finch's voice was thin. Margaret hit play. Rebecca's voice filled the room. Clear, damning. She won't even know until it's too late. The lawyer said as long as we have medical documentation, the judge won't even question it. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael's hands were shaking. Rebecca wouldn't look up. Finch closed the folder in front of him. This meeting is over. And Mr. Patterson, I am formally withdrawing as your attorney. I will not be involved in fraud. He stood and walked out of his own conference room. Michael turned to me. His eyes were desperate. Mom, please. We can explain. We were just trying to get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of this office. Get out of my house. Get out of my life. Rebecca grabbed her purse. Come on, Mikal. We need to go. But Mikal just stood there, staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. You knew? He whispered. This whole time. You knew. Yes, I said. I knew. And for the first time in months, I didn't smile. The courthouse was quieter than I expected. Margaret and I sat on a wooden bench in the hallway outside courtroom 3B, waiting for our case to be called. It had been 5 days since the meeting at Gerald Finch's office. 5 days since I'd last spoken to my son. He'd called 17 times. I didn't answer. Rebecca had sent text messages. Apologies, explanations, promises that it had all been a misunderstanding. I deleted every one. You ready? Margaret asked, glancing at her watch. Yes. She'd filed an emergency motion to block any future guardianship attempts and to have the fraudulent petition formally dismissed. She'd also filed complaints with the state medical board about Dr. Chun and a formal report with the district attorney's office about the forged notarization. I didn't know if anything would come of it, but I knew it was on the record now. Permanent, real. The courtroom doors opened, and a bailiff called our case number. We walked in. The room was smaller than I'd imagined. Wood paneling, an American flag in the corner. The judge sat behind an elevated desk, looking over his reading glasses at a stack of papers. Margaret and I sat at one table. The other table was empty. Michael and Rebecca weren't there. The judge looked up. "Ms. Hall, I've reviewed your motion and the supporting documentation. This is fairly straightforward. Where is opposing counsel?" "Your Honor, there is no opposing counsel. The attorney originally retained by the petitioners withdrew after evidence of fraud was presented. The petitioners themselves have not appeared." The judge flipped through the file. His expression darkened as he read. "So let me make sure I understand this correctly," he said slowly. "A son and daughter-in-law attempted to file for guardianship over Mrs. Patterson using falsified medical records and forged witness statements." "That's correct, Your Honor." He looked at me. Really looked at me. "Mrs. Patterson, are you here of your own volition?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you understand the nature of these proceedings?" "I understand completely." He studied me for a long moment. Then he turned back to Margaret. "I'm granting your motion. The petition for guardianship is dismissed with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled. I'm also issuing a protective order preventing Michael Patterson and Rebecca Patterson from accessing Mrs. Patterson's financial accounts, medical records, or property without her explicit written consent." Margaret nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not finished." The judge's voice was sharp now. "I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation. Forging legal documents is not a family dispute. It's a crime. And exploiting an elderly person for financial gain is elder abuse. Do you understand what that means, Ms. Hall?" "Yes, Your Honor." He looked at me again. "Mrs. Patterson, do you wish to pursue criminal charges against your son and daughter-in-law?" The courtroom went still. I thought about Michael as a little boy. The way he used to climb into my lap when he had nightmares. The way he'd cried at his father's funeral, holding my hand like I was the only solid thing left in the world. Then I thought about the way he'd looked through me in my own kitchen. The way he'd spoken about me like I was already gone. The way he'd tried to erase me while I was still breathing. "I want them held accountable," I said. "But I'll let the court decide what that means." The judge made a note. "Fair enough. The court will forward all evidence to the appropriate authorities. Mrs. Patterson, I'm also ordering that your medical records be corrected and that Dr. Chun's fraudulent assessment be expunged from your file. You have the right to file a separate complaint with the medical board, which I encourage you to do." "I already have, Your Honor," Margaret said. "Good." He signed something and handed it to the bailiff. "Mrs. Patterson, your assets, your property, and your autonomy are fully protected under this order. No one can make decisions on your behalf without your consent. Is there anything else you need from this court?" I thought about that. About everything I'd lost. About everything I'd fought to keep. "No, Your Honor," I said. "I have everything I need." He nodded. "Then this matter is closed. Good luck to you, Mrs. Patterson." We walked out of that courthouse into the afternoon sun. Margaret stopped on the steps and turned to me. "How do you feel?" I took a deep breath. The air was cold and clean. Free. She smiled. "You should. You just won." I drove home alone. The house was exactly as I'd left it. Quiet. Mine. I walked through each room, touching things I'd touched 1,000 times before. The kitchen counter where I'd folded dish towels. The table where Michael had spread out his papers. The office where Rebecca had gone through my files. It all looked different now. like I was seeing it clearly for the first time in months. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mom, please. We need to talk. I'm sorry. Please." I stared at it for a long time. Then I blocked the number. If this is hitting close to home, stay with me. And if you'd like more stories like this, subscribing really helps. Because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about forgiveness. I sat down at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and opened my laptop. Margaret had sent me the final court order, along with copies of everything we'd submitted. I read through it all one more time. Every recording, every receipt, every lie they'd tried to make true. And then I archived it. All of it. In a folder labeled evidence. Just in case I ever needed to remember what silence had protected me from. But I didn't need to read it again to know what I'd learned. Sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones you need protection from. And sometimes the only way to save yourself is to let them think you're already lost. 3 months passed before I saw Michael again. It wasn't planned. I was at the grocery store, pushing my cart down the cereal aisle, when I turned the corner, and there he was. He looked thinner, older. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before. We both froze. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Someone's cart squeaked past us in the next aisle. "Mom," he said finally. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't used it in a while. "Michael." He took a step toward me, then stopped. Like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to come closer. "I've been trying to reach you. I know. He rubbed his face with both hands. "I don't even know where to start. I'm so sorry. I know that's not enough, but I don't know what else to say." I stood there with my hands on the cart handle, looking at my son, the boy I'd raised, the man who'd tried to take everything from me. "Why did you do it?" I asked quietly. He looked down. "Because I was scared." "Of what?" "Of losing you. Of losing everything. Rebecca kept saying that if we didn't act fast, you'd give everything away to some charity, or I don't know. It sounds insane now." He looked up at me, and his eyes were wet. "But somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as my mother. I started seeing you as an obstacle. And I hate myself for that." "Where's Rebecca?" "Gone." He laughed bitterly. "She left 2 weeks after the court hearing. Said she didn't sign up for this kind of mess. Took half of what we had and moved to Phoenix." I didn't feel sorry for him, but I didn't feel satisfied either. I just felt tired. "The DA dropped the criminal charges," he said. "Did you know that?" I heard. "Because of you. Margaret told me you asked them not to prosecute. Why would you do that?" I thought about that question. About all the reasons I could give. About forgiveness and family and second chances. But the truth was simpler than that. "Because you're still my son," I said. "And I didn't want to be the person who put you in prison. But that doesn't mean I trust you. And it doesn't mean we're okay." He nodded slowly, wiping his eyes. "I understand." "Do you?" "I think so. You protected yourself. You let me think I was winning while you built a case against me. You were smarter than I ever gave you credit for." He looked at me with something that might have been respect. Or shame. "I underestimated you." "Yes," I said. "You did." We stood there in the cereal aisle. 2 people who used to know each other. Trying to figure out if there was anything left worth saving. "Can I call you sometime?" he asked. "Not now. Not soon. But eventually?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Maybe," I said. "But Michael, if you call me, it's because you want to know how I'm doing. Not because you want something from me. Not because you feel guilty. Not because you think enough time has passed. Do you understand the difference?" "I do." "Then maybe someday. But not today." He nodded. "Okay. That's fair." I pushed my cart past him, my shoulder brushing his as I went by. Then I stopped and turned back. "Michael." "Yeah." I want you to know something. What you did, what you tried to do, didn't break me. It just showed me who I really am. And I'm stronger than either of us knew. His face crumpled. I know you are. Mom, I know. I left him standing there and finished my shopping alone. When I got home, I unpacked the groceries and made myself dinner. Just me. In my kitchen. In my house. The house that was still mine. I ate slowly, looking out the window at the backyard I'd planted 30 years ago. The garden my husband had helped me build. The life I'd protected when everyone thought I was too old, too confused, too weak to fight back. After dinner, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea and watched the sun set. My phone was next to me, but it didn't ring. And that was okay. Because I'd learned something these past few months. Something I wished I'd known sooner. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the most powerful choice you can make. When people underestimate you, when they think you don't notice, when they speak freely because they assume you can't understand, that's when you learn the truth. That's when they show you exactly who they are. And if you're smart, if you're patient, if you stay quiet long enough, they'll give you everything you need to protect yourself. I didn't yell. I didn't fight. I didn't cause a scene. I just watched. I listened. I documented. And when the time was right, I let the truth speak louder than I ever could. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing that the people you love most are capable of hurting you the deepest. It was accepting that sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about respect. And when that respect is gone, all you have left is yourself. But here's what I want you to understand. I didn't win because I was smarter. I won because I refused to become what they expected. I refused to be confused, helpless, or invisible. I stayed present. I stayed sharp. And I stayed silent until silence became my greatest weapon. If you've ever lived through something like this, if you've ever been dismissed, underestimated, or erased by people who claimed to love you, know this. You are not powerless. You are not too old, too tired, or too late. You're exactly where you need to be. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let them think they've already won. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and if you've ever had to fight for your own dignity in your own home. Because these stories, they're not just mine. They belong to all of us who refuse to disappear. And if you don't want to miss what happens next, subscribe so you can find stories like this again. Stories about people who stayed quiet until it was time to be heard. I'm still here, in my house, living my life, on my terms. And that's the ending they never saw coming.